evening, all. This has probably been the darkest week in YouTube's history, with the situation with Steven Crowder and Carlos Maza, YouTube, and Vox. Now, I'm going to make an assumption here, just so I don't make this video go on too long, that you know the bare bones of this story. Steven Crowder's been using a mocking epithet about Carlos Maza. Carlos Maza says that's actually hate speech. And he's pushing to get Crowder and other people like him removed from YouTube. And YouTube's responded by saying, well, how about we go halfway and we just demonetize him and just hide his channel in the recommendations, so he won't get as many views. And maybe would he settle for that? You know, Maza's not. Maza is turning his guns onto YouTube itself, saying the platform itself is enabling right-wing hate apologists or whatever. You know, just so he wants YouTube taken down. Now, Maza, who is the most odious of left-wing activists out there, and boy has he got some competition, you know, when you take into consideration Jack Smith IV and Tim Squirrel. But Maza is going nuclear on this one, and he's doing it to YouTube because he can't bring down Fox News at the moment. Fox has not buckled or caved in, nor people who advertise on Fox have buckled or caved in to get even Tucker Carlson removed from Fox. So they're going to attack a company that is more spineless, less strong, kind of vaguely sympathetic to Carlos Maza and his political ilk. But let's not forget that, and I think this is worth repeating, and that is Maza's not doing this because Crowder has used hate speech against him. Maza is not doing this because he feels hurt and offended by Steven Crowder's use of epithets. Crowder uses epithets with practically everyone, his friends, his foes. Everybody gets an epithet. It's mockery, it's satire, it's sarcasm. It's not hate. Maza is doing this because he wants to remove all conservatives out of the public discourse. That is the long-term plan. Okay, and how? Because if it really was about hate speech, he would have complained from day one. Okay, Crowder has been saying the epithet, which I can't repeat here, because the left get hung up on exact words and semantics. They don't take into consideration context. They don't take into consideration intent. You know, I could be making a very neutral, very bland presentation about this news story and use the epithet that Steven Crowder used for Carlos Maza, and all the algorithms, all the little busybodies who work at YouTube, all they'll see are the exact words. They won't see the meaning or the wider contents, and I will get hit. So I'm not going to do that, but you know what the epithet is anyway. So Maza is doing this because it's Pride Month and because it's the start of the US 2020 presidential election cycle. This was very well covered on the Michael Knowles show on the Daily Wire. I do recommend you go and watch Knowles' video on this because I think he summarises it very well, and he's analysed it very well. So this is a part of a wider political ploy. And we shouldn't be surprised. I think we keep getting surprised. Those of us on the mainstream right and the centre, all the nice guys, all the nice people, we keep getting surprised by this. And we shouldn't be, because the left, and particularly the radical left, are so good on strategy. And we are useless, because we're all individuals and we don't follow a playbook. But they do. And let me explain. Now, there was something that was I was made aware of this week. A very good tweet stream. I can't remember who it was, but they were explaining about the playbook that Carlos Maza and other left-wing activists are using in order to bring YouTube down, bring the content creators down, and to push conservatives out, or the mainstream right and the genuine centre completely out of the political discourse. And it's not important who the person on Twitter was who tweeted this out. it's important to know two websites. One's called beautifultrouble.org, the other one's called Beautiful Rising. They're both allied, they're both similar websites. I believe they're run by the same people. And they explain step by step on these websites how you get the right, how you push them out. Okay, how you push the right and the center out. And what it is, it's all about power networks and power dynamics. So you choose somebody that you want to get rid of. Okay, you want them out of the picture. You look at them and you go, okay, they've got some followers and they've got a little bit of pull and they've got a little bit of influence. So how do we get rid of them? Well, you work out who they're connected to, particularly who is above them. So in Crowder's case, who is funding Crowder? Well, that's his mug club, his subscribers for the most part, but also he was monetized on YouTube. So YouTube gives him the platform and gives him a little bit of money, and he has sponsors as well, private individuals who subscribe. Okay, so Marza looks at that and says, I can't get the subscribers, but I can get YouTube. And that's how it begins. You identify the power networks, who you have your target, and you look at who is above them, who are they connected to, right? And you're trying to cut the connections between those above your target. So in this case, it's going after YouTube. And what you're trying to do is move the needle, of the opinion needle, against your target. So you work out, okay, who's on their side, who is slightly on their side, who is neutral, who is slightly against them, and who is really against them. And what you're trying to do is move the needle all into the anti-camp. So what you're trying to do is the people who are slightly against you must become totally against you. The people in the neutral position must become slightly against you. The people who are slightly in favor must become neutral, and the people who are overwhelmingly pro must become slightly in favor. You see, you're moving the needle into hatred, and eventually people calling for that person to be removed. And that's how it works. So that's, remember, that's these websites, beautifultrouble.org, Beautiful Rising. I'm not giving them an endorsement. This is the warning. It's out there. This is the activist playbook. This and Rules for Radicals. Okay, the Saul Alinsky book. This is what they work from, and it works every single time. Okay, I say every single time, but they failed in Kavanaugh because that was put in the hands of idiot politicians at the end of the day, and their star witness turned out not to be much of a star or a witness, for that matter. And also they failed in Covington because everybody could see the truth. You can't move the public opinion needle against something if the raw evidence sat in front of you says overwhelmingly the opposite. So all the people who were neutral or slightly disapproving could not be shifted in the Covington case any further to the anti, because the evidence in front was just too overwhelming. Okay, but the antis were still anti. Didn't move everything back the right way. Okay, that's not what it did. Covington was just about keeping the opinion needle exactly where it was before the event happened. Okay. So this is what I mean. They're so good. They have a playbook. They have a strategy. And the trouble is that we on the right, I keep saying this, it's a recurring theme on my channel, is that we on the right and on the centre do not have effective counter strategies because we can't agree on a counter strategy, because we're not ideologically conformist enough. Okay, so when I say to people, well, what are we going to do? Okay, we're getting censored left, right and centre. We're being kicked off platforms. We're getting our livelihoods affected. What can we do to just say we deserve our place in the national discourse or the international discourse? We deserve our place. This is freedom of speech. This is our freedom of expression. This is our freedom of political affiliation. The problem is that nobody can agree on a solution. So when I speak to people from the centre, they are thinking of in terms of digital bills of rights, or they're thinking of breaking up the tech companies and ending the cartel as some kind of government regulation, maybe even a watchdog, some kind of regulatory agency. And that's one point of view. And then on the other point of view are the libertarians, who say absolutely none of that, no government interference. These are private companies, and if they want to be this stupid and idiotic, we'll just go and move somewhere else en masse down the line. But there are problems with these different approaches. If on the libertarian side, the rivals to Twitter, to Facebook, to YouTube are few and far between. And it's not as simple as saying, well, we'll just migrate somewhere else. These other platforms are quite small. BitChute, for example, has no monetization program, so it can't pay you when you make these videos. You can't make a livelihood from it. And also, it's not immune to the same tactics. If we all go to Gab, or we all go to Minds, or we all go to BitChute, the left will come after us on those platforms as well, and they will use the same tactics. They will get into the headspace of people who run these sites, into companies. There won't be the big money sponsorship. The banks will be targeted, and we've seen this with Subscribestar. The banks will pull the money because we have the woke corporations, because the left got into the headspace of companies, of big business. How the hell did that happen? That happened on our watch. Okay, the strange, bizarre alliance between Marxists and big companies took us all by surprise. And so just migrating to another platform is not necessarily going to work. But at the same time, creating some kind of agency and breaking up these companies and creating a watchdog has dangers as well, because now we're getting the government to step in. And the government is just as susceptible to the woke pressure groups. It doesn't matter what political stripe that party's in, they want to avoid the bad publicity as well. And so the woke activists will get to them as well, because they just say, we're a threat. We're a threat to decency. We're harmful. We're hateful. Now, action is being taken, and I implore everybody, find the kind of action that best suits you, that you can best work in, but you've got to take action. You can't just sit on the sideline and snipe and complain and wait for the whole thing to burn down, because there's no guarantee, if the whole system collapses, that therefore that will allow the libertarians to come in and fix everything and create this wonderful new era of freedom and liberty. It's just as likely, in fact, I would suggest it's even more likely, that if the system collapses, everything, the financial system, or the digital media world collapses, that the authoritarian left will step into that space faster and quicker and better organized to take control. Okay, because this is what they're planning for. This is what they want. They want to step in and take control, and they have got the strategy to do it. So some people have said, I'm going to create my own platform. Great, do it. You've got my blessing. Go and do that. Create the alternatives. Other people say, well, maybe we should form a union. I don't like the idea of unions, because we're starting to put people into under certain rules that not everybody would agree with, and then you've got the issue of subs, and you've got the issue of unions, as they have always been, getting subverted by the left. No, alliance is a better thing. Something where everybody who comes into the alliance keeps their individuality, opts in, opts out of their own choosing, but we all get together and we decide strategies together and we march in lockstep. You've got to, against the left. This is what I found interesting, where I'm up to in The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt, is that he's talking about the hive switch. Okay, and that is that thing that we have. We are, 90% A, 10% B. And it's that 10% that we need to call on when we're under threat. It's the thing that armies use to get into lockstep, fight as a unit, the camaraderie and the having each other's backs. And I think that's something we need to do. On the right, it may seem the antithesis of what you believe, acting as a group, as a hive, as a collective. And I get told this. If I say we got to form an alliance, I go, you statist, you collectivist. That is not the point, and you've got to stop thinking like that. Okay, you radical libertarians. I like you, but this is where you're wrong. Okay, alliances do not compel you against your will. Okay, alliances are where you all agree that a collective defense, a mutual supporting defense is what's needed. And then once we've won our space, we can go our separate ways and we can all do our own different things. But you've got to act in unison on this one. And that is, if you can find things, as I said, if you want to create your own platforms, go for it. There are some who are getting together to put lawsuits in. And there are people who want to, I don't know if this will work. Tim Pool is a bit skeptical. But the idea of finally ending this nebulous status where tech companies and these social media companies flit between acting like publishers 1 minute and acting like platforms the next. The time has come. It's one or the other, and we would prefer it if they were platforms. And therefore, you could, in America, you can bring them under the First Amendment, and you can end the little gobshites like Carlos Maza manipulating things, pretending it's all about stopping hate speech and stopping, online hate. Because the online hate's from him. It's not from Stephen Crowder, it's from him. And it's time we just got up off our asses and do something. Contact people. I've been mocked for this. And I say, no, look, contact people. Okay, there are a lot of right-leaning journalists out there who would give you a sympathetic ear. Just try writing to them saying, this is terrible. Why don't you form a union? Why don't you get together and make a stand against this? Because it's affecting me, it'll affect you. They found woke corporations. Can we find people with money, with power, companies that will take a pro-free speech, capitalist, liberty line? Find them, get them on our side. We need big people, we need important people, we need famous people, we need rich people to help us fight this fight. That's when the left, they're such hypocrites, right? That they say, end capitalism. But they have got wealth behind them. They get money from somewhere. Okay, we need to get money, and we need to get a bit of clout, and we need to get a bit of polish, and we need to read their tactical manuals, because I'm telling you, just going to another platform is not going to work. They will come after us. Once they've chased us off YouTube, they'll chase us off BitChute. Once they've chased us off Twitter, they'll chase us off Gab. And I'm signed up to Minds, and I've found Minds to be a slightly disappointing experience, because Minds, there's so much tinfoil hat brigade there. And that was another thing that I can't remember who it was who said this, but you chase off all the conspiracy theorists and the fringe nutty elements, and then you chase away the sensible mainstream right, and you force them onto a platform where they have to stand shoulder to shoulder and a little bit too close for comfort with the tinfoil hat nut jobs. What do you think's going to happen? And that's what I feel like on Minds. I just feel like people started following me. There's a conspiracy theorists, a few kind of white supremacists, and I thought, and I don't put much up on Minds anymore because of that. Because I just don't want to mix in those circles. And besides, I want to reach out to a broad audience. Okay, and unfortunately, Twitter and YouTube is where it's at with that. There's, I will have to go to BitChute if all my favourite commentators are going there already, but they will come after us there. So we've got to think of, okay, how do we go to these new platforms and then build in the protections that will keep, our freedom of speech and our liberties safe. Okay, so it's not just enough to migrate. You have to migrate and then defend. Okay, let's move on from there, and I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the Conservative leadership race. Specifically about Rory Stewart. This is a weird one, because the media love him, and they're pushing him everywhere you go. It's Rory Stewart, Rory Stewart, Rory Stewart. And frankly, to those of us who don't live in a media bubble, this is quite surprising. Rory Stewart himself is not particularly conservative. You know, he used to be in the Labour Party. He left it because Labour doesn't get things done. A kind of myth has arisen around Rory Stewart that he was in the army and he served in Afghanistan, and that he kind of knows the experience as a soldier, but he wasn't really in the army. I think it was 5 months tops, and he went to Afghanistan as a civil servant, not as a member of the armed forces. And I became aware of Rory Stewart about 18 months ago when he was featured on a Radio 4 piece where his constituency, I think, is the least densely populated constituency in the United Kingdom, and it's very rural. And he seemed personable enough, just going around talking about how he, with a non-political background, we subsequently found out that's not entirely true, was going to deal with local issues in a part of the country he wasn't that familiar with. So they really soft-pedaled him, and they continue to soft-pedal him. He's also taken a leaf out of Sargon of Akkad's book by going around saying, I'm going to meet general members of the public. I'm going to be in this public space, and anyone can come up to me and talk to me on any issue. Now, the thing is that when Sargon did it, I thought it was really good, because he quite often people who really disliked him would challenge him, and I think he's become so much better at debating than he was 2 years ago when he was doing things at VidCon. And he looked uncomfortable. He was far too combative and uncomfortable in those ones. But with this thing out in the public, where he's perhaps a little bit more vulnerable, he was always calm, and he was very clear in his arguments, and I thought that was fantastic. And that, I think that did well when he went to have the interview with Victoria Derbyshire. But anyway, I digress. Stewart's trying to do the same thing, but where is he on YouTube? I haven't seen any of these public discussions. For all I know, they never happen. So he's not doing the result. He gets on Twitter and says, had a fantastic time meeting everybody. Okay, prove it. What was it? Really? Did people like him that much? Nobody put a negative question to him. But anyway, according to some polls, he's ahead of Boris Johnson, just. But here's where it all comes down to reality. You look at how many declared, how many MPs in Parliament, Conservative MPs, have declared for him. Not many. He's third from the bottom at the moment. So it's all hot air, media-driven hot air about it. Now, the Rubber Channel here, and I'm in trouble with my wife with this. Okay, the Rubber Channel is declaring for Dominic Raab, okay, because he is the man with the vision. We did this on Academic Agents live stream the other night, and we looked at all the policies of the candidates, and Raab has a vision for conservatism that is genuinely conservative. He's plonked. Well, he wants to plonk the Conservative Party firmly on the mainstream right. So there's more stuff about classical liberalism. There's more stuff about freedom of enterprise and all the things that you would associate with the mainstream right. And people are attacking, he's anti-feminist. I've had some lying idiot called Rich on Twitter sort of saying, all this sexism, and he was calling me a white middle-aged male. How ageist and racist of Rich to do that. But no, Raab is arguing for universalism. Right? That we all of us, no matter what our race, our gender, our whatever immutable characteristic, our age, doesn't matter. We are all equal under the law. We all have equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome. And this is great. This is really proper mainstream right-wing stuff. So Raab gets my vote, but I'm in trouble, as you may know. If you know a little bit about what I've said. My family are all friends of Gove, and they're backing him. I shouldn't jest, because there are a lot of admirable qualities about Michael Gove. I've been there. With the man himself. Not doing that, by the way. No, that was all happened when he was doing late night Channel 4 TV programs in the early 90s. Okay. No, but what I'm saying is that I've been there when he's been giving talks, and he's at party functions, and there's a lot of good qualities about him, and James Dellingpole agrees, and Dellingpole knows him a lot better than I do. But I don't think he's quite got the vision. I don't think he's Prime Minister material, and so it's a bit frosty in the rubber household at the moment. But there you go. It takes a biscuit, doesn't it?